The alien doctor had always thought of humans as strange, fragile creatures. To him, their biology seemed like a crude joke played by nature. He had studied hundreds of species across the galaxy, each one more impressive than the last. There were beings with regenerative limbs, creatures that could survive extreme radiation, and organisms capable of living without sleep for centuries. Compared to them, humans appeared weak and inefficient, with their short lifespans, brittle bones, and an over-reliance on oxygen. It baffled him that such an ordinary species had managed to spread across the stars. When the human patient arrived at his clinic on one of the central medical stations, the alien doctor wasn't impressed. The human's records listed fatigue, muscle pain, and abnormal blood pressure, symptoms so generic that they hardly warranted his attention. He sighed, thinking this would be another routine case. A quick examination followed by some basic supplements and a dismissive wave. He began by scanning the human's body. As the readings flickered across his diagnostic tablet, the doctor smirked. The human cardiovascular system seemed barely functional compared to more advanced species. The heart, in particular, amused him. A single pump, dependent on a network of narrow, easily clogged vessels. It was a design so flawed it seemed like a cosmic oversight. He noted the inefficiency in his report with thinly veiled sarcasm, certain this was another example of human biology's mediocrity. Next, he analyzed the human's muscle tissue. He found the distribution uneven and not particularly impressive. The density was far lower than species evolved for strength or endurance. Bone structure, light and brittle. The human immune system, reactive and oversensitive, prone to unnecessary inflammation and allergic responses. The doctor nearly laughed when the skin highlighted past injuries, minor fractures, scars, and signs of past infections. This creature was a walking collection of errors and repairs. Still, he was a professional. He continued with the tests, though his confidence in the outcome was already set. He fully expected the results to confirm his low opinion of human biology. After all, what could this species offer in terms of genetic adaptability or physical resilience that others hadn't far surpassed? But as the deeper genetic analysis came in, the doctor's confidence wavered. The human genome was far more complex than he had anticipated. It showed an unusual blend of resilience and adaptability. Their DNA carried traces of ancient struggles against countless pathogens, evidence of battles fought and won over millennia. He saw adaptations for surviving drastic climate changes, resistance to diseases that should have wiped them out, and even genetic markers that hinted at an extraordinary capacity for healing under the right conditions. It wasn't just survival, it was stubborn, relentless survival. Then there was the brain. The scan revealed something astonishing. The human brain, while not the largest in size compared to other species, showed an intricate network of connections optimized for adaptability and problem-solving. The doctor noticed high levels of neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire and adapt itself to new challenges. He had seen nothing like it. This wasn't a mind built for simple survival. It was designed to overcome, to learn, to create solutions where none should exist. The human brain was, in many ways, more advanced than any he had studied before. He moved on to the blood tests. The results stunned him further. Human blood was highly regenerative, with an ability to recover from injury and disease at a pace that defied his understanding. The cells worked in perfect coordination, adapting quickly to new threats. Their immune system, while seemingly flawed on the surface, had an underlying brilliance. It learned fast, remembered past enemies, and could mount a defense stronger than any engineered system he had encountered in other species. But it was the endurance test that truly changed his perspective. When subjected to simulated extreme conditions, the human body demonstrated a resilience that bordered on the impossible. The cardiovascular system he had mocked earlier adjusted to stress with remarkable efficiency. The muscles he had dismissed as weak grew stronger under repeated strain, adapting rapidly. The respiratory system, despite its apparent dependence on oxygen, could function in low-oxygen environments far longer than he expected. This was not a fragile creature, it was a biological machine fine-tuned for survival under the harshest conditions. The final test involved the human's psychological resilience. He reviewed records of human responses to trauma, loss, and hardship. Species with stronger bodies often crumbled under psychological stress, but humans seemed to thrive on it. He saw examples of humans who had survived catastrophic events, rebuilt their lives from nothing, and pushed forward with a drive that was almost illogical. They didn't just survive, they refused to give up. The alien doctor sat back, staring at the results in silence. His earlier smugness was gone, replaced by a deep respect and a little fear. Humans were far more than their biology suggested at first glance. Their bodies were not the strongest, but they were adaptive. Their hearts were not the most efficient, but they were relentless. And their minds, those strange, stubborn minds, were capable of pushing them beyond their biological limits. He updated his report with a newfound seriousness. This species was not to be underestimated. They were survivors in the truest sense of the word. What he had initially seen as weakness was actually a profound strength. In the end, he couldn't help but feel humbled. Humans were not the joke he had thought them to be. They were a testament to nature's ingenuity, a reminder that sometimes, it's not the strongest or the fastest that thrive, but the most adaptable. The alien doctor had seen many species in his time. As a top medical researcher on Zynar 4, a galactic hub for scientific advancement, he had studied and dissected countless forms of life. The biology of each species was unique, with complex organs and intricate biological systems that reflected millions of years of evolution. The more advanced the species, the more impressive their bodies. But humans? The doctor found them laughable. They seemed primitive by comparison. Their organs were fragile, their bones easily broken, and their immune systems shockingly basic. Human biology was a patchwork of inefficient systems that barely seemed capable of keeping them alive. No bioluminescence, no self-healing limbs, not even redundant hearts like the Frolics had. The doctor shook his head every time he reviewed the data on them. How had such a weak species survived long enough to join the galactic community? It was a mystery to him. One day, a human subject named Lieutenant Mark Evans arrived at the medical facility. The lieutenant had volunteered for a comprehensive biological study, part of a joint project between the Galactic Science Council and Earth Space Command. The goal was to understand human biology better and improve medical treatment for humans in space. The alien doctor, still skeptical of the species, found the task amusing. He expected to confirm what he already believed, that humans were biologically inferior, barely a step above the more primitive species in the galaxy. He began his work by running the standard tests: blood analysis, genetic sequencing, organ function assessments, and cellular regeneration studies. He examined Mark's body from head to toe, noting the unimpressive design of human musculature and the limited capacity of the lungs. He chuckled to himself while recording the data, mentally composing his report, which would undoubtedly highlight the weaknesses and inefficiencies of human anatomy. But as the test results started coming in, something unusual began to emerge. At first, it was subtle, a discrepancy in cellular behavior that didn't match the baseline data. The doctor ran the tests again, assuming an error in the equipment, but the results were the same. Human cells were showing signs of remarkable adaptability. Unlike most species, whose cells responded predictably to environmental changes. Human cells seemed to thrive under stress. They didn't just survive, they improved. Intrigued, the doctor focused on the human's genetic code. That's where things became even stranger. Human DNA contained an unprecedented level of genetic diversity and potential for adaptation. While most species had stable genomes with limited mutation rates, human DNA seemed almost chaotic, filled with redundancies, mutations, and what should have been useless genetic remnants. Yet somehow, this chaotic structure wasn't a weakness, it was a strength. It gave humans the ability to adapt to nearly any environment over time, from deserts to frozen wastelands, and even the vacuum of space. The doctor started to review historical data on human evolution. What he found left him stunned. Humans had survived countless mass extinctions, harsh climates, and catastrophic events that would have wiped out other species. They had no natural weapons, no claws, venom, or armored skin, yet they had become apex predators through sheer adaptability, intelligence, and a relentless drive to overcome challenges. Their fragile-looking bodies were far more resilient than he had imagined. The test results continued to surprise him. Human bone tissue, though not the hardest or strongest in the galaxy, had a unique microstructure that allowed it to absorb and distribute impact better than most species. Their immune systems, while not the most advanced, were highly flexible, capable of learning and adapting to new threats faster than most known life forms. Even their simple musculature was efficient, allowing for quick bursts of power and surprising endurance. Then came the cognitive tests. The doctor expected the human brain to be another example of mediocrity, functional but limited. Instead, what he found was a neural network of staggering complexity. The human brain wasn't the largest or most energy efficient, but it had an unparalleled capacity for creativity, problem solving, and abstract thinking. More importantly, it was wired for survival in ways the doctor had never seen before. Humans could endure extreme mental stress and trauma, adapt their strategies on the fly, and find solutions where none seemed possible. It wasn't just biology that set humans apart. It was their relentless will to survive, to adapt, and to thrive in conditions no other species could tolerate. The doctor's earlier skepticism began to fade, replaced by a growing respect for the species he had once mocked. He realized that what seemed like weaknesses at first glance were actually the keys to human success. Their chaotic DNA, fragile bodies, and limited natural defenses had forced them to become the most adaptable and resourceful species he had ever studied. By the time the study was complete, the doctor sat in his office, reviewing the final report. He had expected to write a scathing critique of human biology, but the reality was far more complex. Humans weren't weak, they were survivors, perhaps the greatest survivors the galaxy had ever seen. Their biology wasn't flawed, it was brilliantly chaotic, perfectly suited to an unpredictable universe. The doctor leaned back in his chair, a new sense of admiration settling over him. He had misjudged them completely. In their apparent frailty lay an unmatched strength. Humans were more than just another species, they were something extraordinary. For the first time in his long career, the doctor felt humbled. He had learned a valuable lesson: never underestimate a species simply because they seem different. Sometimes, true strength hides in the most unexpected places. The alien doctor's initial reaction to human biology was one of smug amusement. He had seen countless species across the galaxy, creatures with regenerative limbs, multiple hearts, photosynthetic skin, and internal systems far more efficient than anything humans possessed. By comparison, humans seemed fragile, primitive even. Their bodies relied on single hearts, vulnerable nerve networks, and organs that often failed without warning. He couldn't help but scoff at the sheer inefficiency of it all. To him, humans were walking accidents waiting to happen, living only by sheer luck rather than biological design. The human subject was brought in for a full physical evaluation. The doctor, a tall figure with pale, translucent skin and eyes that glowed faintly in dim light, prepared the standard battery of tests. His multiple appendages moved with practiced precision, inserting probes, adjusting scanners, and logging preliminary observations. The human, a young male, sat quietly, unaware of the quiet disdain simmering beneath the doctor's professional demeanor. The initial scans confirmed the alien doctor's assumptions. The human's bone density was unimpressive. His muscle tissue lacked the fibrous complexity seen in many other species. The respiratory system seemed absurdly vulnerable to failure, relying on two delicate organs that were prone to infection and injury. Even the circulatory system, with its single heart, seemed like a gamble of nature, a ticking time bomb rather than a reliable machine. It was laughable, really. He glanced at the human's genetic profile and noticed the numerous mutations and imperfections scattered across the genome. From a purely clinical perspective, it was a miracle that humans even survived to adulthood. The alien doctor mentally drafted his report, noting how unimpressive human biology was compared to the robust physiology of other species in the galaxy. But then, the test results began to roll in. At first, they seemed like errors. The doctor frowned, rechecking the data. The human's immune system activity was far beyond what he expected. It was adaptive, aggressive, and capable of responding to threats faster than many species considered biologically superior. This wasn't the weak, ineffective system he had assumed. It was a relentless force, capable of learning and evolving in real time. Curiosity replaced his earlier condescension. He reviewed the human's cardiovascular data and noticed something strange. Despite its apparent simplicity, the heart was remarkably efficient. It was capable of sustaining high levels of physical exertion for extended periods, pumping blood with a consistency that outperformed many of the redundant multi-heart systems he had studied. Not only that, but the human's vascular system could repair minor damage without external intervention, something that many advanced species lacked entirely. The skeletal system was another surprise. While the bones initially seemed brittle, the tests revealed a hidden strength. Human bones were incredibly dynamic, capable of becoming stronger under stress. This adaptive capability was rare in the galaxy. Even species with natural armor or reinforced skeletons couldn't match the human ability to grow stronger through physical challenge. Their muscles followed a similar pattern. What had seemed like simple, unremarkable tissue was, in reality, a highly responsive system that adapted rapidly to environmental demands. Given enough time and the right conditions, this human could become far more powerful than he appeared now. Then came the neurological analysis. The human brain was a chaotic web of electrical signals and chemical reactions, lacking the neat organization seen in many other species. Yet, somehow, this chaos gave humans an unparalleled advantage: adaptability and problem-solving. The doctor marveled at how the human brain could rapidly rewire itself in response to new experiences, something few species could achieve. Their memories were flexible, and their capacity for abstract thought was virtually limitless. The more he studied the data, the more he realized how dangerous this species could be, not because of their biology's flaws, but because of its sheer potential. The final report came in on the human's genetic adaptability. This, more than anything, shattered the doctor's preconceived notions. Humans were genetic survivors. Their genome was littered with evidence of past battles, viruses, environmental shifts, and countless evolutionary challenges. Yet, rather than breaking down, their biology had adapted. incorporating new strengths and developing resilience over millennia. The doctor had never seen a species that carried so much history within its very cells. Each scar in the genome told a story of survival, of adaptation against all odds. He sat back, reviewing the complete results, his earlier smugness replaced by deep respect. He had been so sure of human inferiority, but the data told a different story. Human biology wasn't weak, it was unpredictable and endlessly adaptable. What he had initially seen as flaws were, in fact, strengths in disguise. Unlike many other species that reached a biological peak and stagnated, humans were constantly evolving, always on the edge of becoming something more. The doctor logged his final assessment. It was far from the dismissive report he had first envisioned. Instead, he described humans as one of the most adaptable species he had ever encountered. Their biology was a testament to survival through constant change, a design built not for perfection, but for persistence and growth. As he submitted the report, he glanced at the human one last time. This species had earned his respect, not because they were the strongest or the fastest, but because they refused to be defined by their limitations. In their so-called imperfections lay their greatest strength, the ability to overcome anything the universe threw at them. What had once seemed laughable was now something far more remarkable. The doctor realized that if there was one species in the galaxy capable of thriving in any environment, any circumstance, it was humanity. They were survivors, and nothing was more dangerous than a species that refused to give up. The alien doctor leaned back in his chair, glancing at the holographic display in front of him. His four-fingered hand tapped rhythmically on the desk as his compound eyes scanned the human's medical report with a mix of curiosity and disdain. In his long career as a physician aboard the Galactic Medical Research Vessel, Dr. Starr had examined countless species from across the galaxy, and without exception, every one of them had biological traits far superior to humans, or so he believed. To him, humans were biologically primitive, fragile, and woefully unremarkable compared to other galactic species. The human patient, recently brought in after a severe spacecraft accident, was unconscious and unresponsive. Starr had already decided that the humans' chances of survival were slim. Their biology was, in his opinion, entirely inadequate for the harsh realities of deep space travel. No redundant organs, no adaptive regenerative capacity. They couldn't even survive in a vacuum for more than a few seconds, a glaring weakness compared to some species. The initial scans seemed to confirm his assumptions. The human's tissues appeared weak, the cardiovascular system barely robust enough to support life, and their nervous system surprisingly crude. Dr. Starr chuckled softly to himself as he entered his preliminary findings. Fascinatingly fragile, he noted in his report. It's a wonder this species has survived for as long as it has. He had seen creatures with scales that could withstand plasma blasts, lungs that could filter toxic atmospheres, and bodies that could hibernate for decades without food or water. Humans, by contrast, seemed pathetically vulnerable. But protocol required a full analysis. As much as Starr disliked wasting time on what he saw as a predictable outcome, he sent the human's blood, tissue, and genetic samples for further testing. While waiting for the results, he reviewed the human's medical history. It was surprisingly sparse, no serious illnesses, no genetic disorders, and a remarkably fast recovery rate from previous injuries. Still, he attributed that to luck rather than any biological advantage. Hours later, the results came in. Starr expected confirmation of his initial assessment, a weak, unremarkable species barely clinging to survival in a universe far beyond their capabilities. Instead, the results stunned him. The human's blood work was unlike anything he had seen before. The immune system was extraordinarily adaptive, capable of identifying and neutralizing foreign pathogens at a rate far beyond that of most species. It wasn't just effective, it was relentless. Where other species' immune systems would fail or become overwhelmed, the human's immune response seemed to improve with each exposure, learning and adapting with frightening efficiency. More tests revealed even more surprises. The human's muscular structure, while not the strongest compared to other species, had an incredible capacity for rapid adaptation and growth. In response to stress or injury, human muscles didn't just repair, they rebuilt themselves stronger, more resilient. Their bones, too, showed signs of remarkable regeneration, knitting together fractures far faster than most species could manage. Thar leaned forward, his earlier smugness replaced by growing disbelief. The human's brain was perhaps the most puzzling discovery of all. Though smaller and less complex than those of many species, it displayed a level of plasticity and adaptability that bordered on the miraculous. Neural pathways could reorganize themselves after injury, compensating for lost functions in ways he had never encountered before. This brain was not just a control center, it was a constantly evolving, self-repairing network designed for survival in the most extreme conditions. Even the cardiovascular system, which he had initially dismissed as barely sufficient, revealed hidden strengths. The human heart, though far from the multi-chambered designs of more advanced species, was a marvel of endurance. It could withstand enormous physical exertion, repairing minor damage on the fly and adapting to increased demands with ease. Combined with an exceptional oxygen-carrying capacity in their blood, humans were built for sustained activity and survival in hostile environments. Thar reviewed the genetic analysis once more, searching for weaknesses. Surely, there had to be some glaring flaw he had overlooked. But no, the genetic code told a story of resilience and relentless adaptation. Humans were not the strongest, fastest, or most durable species, but they possessed something far more valuable: versatility. They could thrive in diverse environments, endure harsh conditions, and, most importantly, recover from injuries and illnesses that would kill most other beings. The data was undeniable. The human wasn't just surviving, it was thriving, despite injuries that should have left it incapacitated or worse. Thar looked at the unconscious human again, a newfound respect replacing his earlier contempt. This creature was not fragile, it was a survivor in the purest sense. As the human's vitals continued to stabilize, Thar updated his report. Gone was the dismissive tone of his initial assessment. In its place was a detailed account of the human's extraordinary biological resilience. He carefully documented the unique traits that allowed humans to adapt, heal, and endure where others would falter. It was a humbling moment for Thar. For years, he had considered himself an expert on the strengths and weaknesses of various species. He had believed he understood the limits of biological design. But this human, this seemingly fragile, unremarkable creature, had challenged everything he thought he knew. He closed the report with a final note: human biology is a study in contradictions. Though they appear fragile at first glance, humans possess a hidden strength that defies explanation. They are not the strongest, nor the fastest, nor the most resilient, but they are survivors. Perhaps the most remarkable I have ever encountered. As Thar prepared to send the report to the Galactic Medical Council, he glanced once more at the human patient. For the first time in a long while, he felt a sense of awe. This was not a species to be underestimated. They were far more than they appeared to be.